Thank you, Mr. Knopper. I will now call to order the regular council meeting of the town of St. Andrews on Tuesday, August the 4th, 2020 at 7 p.m. I will move first to the recording of attendance, and I note that all members of council are in attendance. And I wish to acknowledge as well that our Chief Administrative Officer and Treasurer, Mr. Chris Spear, is in attendance, as well as Mr. Paul Knopper, our town clerk and senior administrator. And I would like to welcome all of those in the public that are participating or at least following us this evening. So I will look for a motion to approve the agenda as written, please.
Move.
Okay, thank you. And a seconder?
You have Councilor Group.
Councilor Grew. Thank you, Councilor Grew. All in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. The agenda is approved. I will now turn to disclosure of conflict of interest in relation to any matter before us tonight. Hearing none, we'll move on. Before we get to the presentations, there are three this evening. I would just like to ask council to bear with me here because I received a short piece of correspondence that I think is very important, and I would like to read it with your indulgence. This is a letter to Mayor Doug Naish, Town of St. Andrews, 212 Water Street, St. Andrews, New Brunswick. Dear Mayor Naish, the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators, CAMA, Long Service Recognition Awards program recognizes and celebrates the dedication to public service and municipal management of our members, which is a significant priority for our association. These awards are based on the number of years of full-time paid employment in municipal government in a management capacity, a chief administrative officer, or reporting directly to a chief administrative officer. They are granted at 10 years and given in 5-year increments. This year in your municipality, we acknowledge the commitment of your Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Chris Spear, for his 15 years of municipal service in a management capacity. His recognition pin has been mailed to him directly, and I think Mr. Knopper has that with him. We ask you to assist us in recognizing Mr. Spear by perhaps making a special presentation to him at City Council for his ongoing support of the municipal profession and of the part that he continues to play in helping to make CAMA the leading organization in fostering and sustaining municipal excellence. Our sincere gratitude to you for your continued support of this valued CAMA member and dedicated employee of your organization. We trust that your municipality has tremendously benefited from his membership in CAMA, and we are confident that it will continue to do so. Signed, Jake Rudolph, CAMA President. Congratulations, Mr. Spear.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well done.
All right. We do have 3 presentations. I will now turn to the first presenter. Councillor Grew, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mayor and councillors and members of the public. At the 6th of July meeting of council, during a discussion on the lack of social distancing and the failure to wear masks outside of Honeybeans, I used the term COVID hotspot. This was a poor choice of words, and I have personally apologized to the owners of Honeybeans for any harm my ill-chosen words may have caused. In setting the record straight, to my knowledge, there has been no cases of COVID-19 in St. Andrews, and the owners of Honeybeans are taking all the necessary measures to deal with this virus. Notwithstanding my poor choice of words, the lack of social distancing by many, coupled with the failure to wear masks, remains an issue. Throughout town, there are many areas where social distancing is not possible or is not being done, and visitors from across Atlantic Canada are in close proximity to each other, not wearing masks. As the council member, such as which has a significant population of senior citizens. Some would suggest that this matter be left with the province. However, a growing number of municipalities have taken the proactive measure of passing bylaws to make masks mandatory with municipal fines for failure to comply. One would argue that these communities are safer today because the town council took steps to protect their community. One such community is the town of Banff. Like St. Andrews, Banff widened their sidewalks and even closed off 2 blocks of the main street to vehicular traffic to deal with COVID-19. Recently, the town council passed a bylaw making masks mandatory in all enclosed public spaces like shops, cafes, stores, as well as the pedestrian zone on the main street. The town bylaw levies a fine of $150 for failure to wear a mask, which has led to the widespread use of masks and a much safer community. The bylaw removes all ambiguity. A mask must be worn, period. It helps to restore public confidence in their safety. This was a difficult measure taken to protect the residents, employees, and visitors in a tourist town to minimize the risks posed by COVID-19. I would request that a mandatory mask bylaw be added to the registers and that this matter be discussed at a special meeting of council in the not too distant future. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Grua. And we will forward that to Mr. Knopper for addition to the register. Thank you. We will now move to our second presenter, Mr. Carl Fyander, please. And Mr. Knopper, are we able to get Mr. Fyander on?
Mr. Fyander's here. He's online with us right now. Mr. Fyander, I'm just going to get your presentation ready and then I will let you go from there. Just give me 1 second.
Thank you, Paul. You can hear me, Paul?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Just give me 1 second.
Very good.
All right, Mr. Fyander, you're good to go.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, staff, and members of the public. My name is Carl Fyander. I'm a resident of St. Andrews. I represent a group of citizens who have serious concerns regarding the current and future accessibility and operation of Market Wharf. We do support the need for having implement procedures associated with controlling the spread of COVID-19. Our primary concern relates to what will become the new normal after COVID-19. Our group initially met with Mr. Knopper and Mr. Tom Clark July the 15th, 2020 at the arena. Social distancing was adhered to. We discussed the concerns of our group and many residents who support our position. Mr. Knopper provided background for rationale of the current situation. Our interaction with our town officials, the council has received a summary of our discussions when we had that meeting. On July 24th, we also provided Mr. Knopper with a submission of our concerns regarding Market Wharf public accessibility and operations. We trust the mayor and council have had ample time to review that. But as far as that meeting goes, there's a couple of things I'd like to clarify in that meeting and the summary to council. There was a couple of things there that I think we have to clarify. On the second part, through the discussions, the members of the public brought forward the following concerns. And this is, Paul, your notes to council, that their evenings and Sunday morning meeting space be taken away. Our evening and every morning meeting place, it should have been actually, okay. As well, on the highlighted the number of accidents and incidents that we discussed. BB Chamberlain gave us some information on some pedestrian issues and one death. That death had nothing to do with traffic. That was a lady that fell and passed away a week later or so in the Bangor hospital. So I just wanted to clarify those things. We definitely support the gate when there's the COVID issue. No question whatsoever. The emergency measures and sanctions now being raised through or changed throughout Atlantic Canada, the temporary barricade has served its purpose as far as we can see. We spent a lot of time down on the wharf, and I don't think we are at the point now with the number of people in St. Andrews this year that it really needs to be there. Okay. The afternoon of July 28th, we received word from Wharfingers, from the Wharfinger, that vehicle traffic would be allowed access from 4:30 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. the next day. Our group definitely appreciates that decision, and we'd like to thank you for it, but our position has not changed. We feel there should be no restrictions to the vehicle or pedestrian access at any time, and all barriers on our preference certainly would be, we'd be happy to see them removed now. We understand council is considering an installation of a permanent gate at the entrance to the wharf approach limiting access to vehicular traffic. We do not believe a permanent gate is the best interest of the town or members of this community. There's so much background to the wharf, and the history down there for years and years has been the focal point of the town. It is the last remaining wharf on our waterfront. We don't know exactly how many there have been in the past. We know there's more than a dozen, probably 14 to 16 from some of the old maps we see. For years, the wharf was maintained by the federal government, primarily used by local fishermen for as long as I can remember, for sure, as a kid growing up in St. Andrews. There's no record of access ever being restricted other than when we have a cruise ship in. When the fire happened, of course, there was restrictions at that point. But as far as restrictions, just to put a gate up and have no access, it's just something that's never happened before. It's part of our character and culture for centuries. It's enjoyed by people of all walks of life, both locals and visitors. Visited daily by a lot of residents, weather permitting. Of course, we all know it was destroyed by fire in 1994. The new wharf was constructed between 96 and 98. Local, provincial, and federal governments contributed to the cost. The town became the owner at that point, or after the construction. The town's share of capital costs, including improvements over the years, are funded through long-term borrowing. Repayment is borne by the town's property owners through municipal taxes. So the property owners have a vested interest and expect access by whatever means they have. Uninterrupted access contributes to the well-being of this community. Personal safety, of course, is always a concern for everyone. Historically, there's been no incidents or accidents rising to the level that would warrant restricting access. A little more on the background. Original design intended for both vehicles and pedestrians. Smaller vehicles such as cars and pickup trucks are not a significant source of structural damage to the wharf. Any significant damage to the wharf is caused by the larger loaded trucks or heavy lift mobile cranes. Here's some of our other concerns. To restrict access by vehicle is counter to the St. Andrews Market Wharf Policy and Procedures WF-19-02, which states in part that the wharf is a town asset which will be managed to enhance the economic and social well-being of the town, its taxpayers and visitors. The intent of this policy is to provide equal and equitable access to the marine facility for all users by implementing operational practices designed to ensure the personal safety of all visitors, users, and town employees. In the policy and procedures, users is not clearly defined. Our group goes on record to advise that all members of this community have always been users of the wharf, and we all believe that it is a place that definitely contributes to our social well-being. For those who are unable to access by foot, a gate would prevent the opportunity to enjoy what the wharf has traditionally offered. Historically, drivers of vehicles are very cautious when on the wharf and do not present a real danger to anyone there, themselves, pedestrians, other users, visitors, or town employees. By its nature alone, a gate presents as being unfriendly and non-welcoming and restrictive. Such things are divisive and negative. And does the town want to present as being unfriendly, non-welcoming, restrictive? Of course we do not. Other concerns and comments, installing a permanent gate would restrict vehicular traffic, represent a division point between haves and the have-nots. The haves are those with vehicular access because they have paid an annual fee to allow such access. The have-nots include everyone else, many of whom have paid and continue to pay for the wharf by means of property taxes, but would not be permitted access by vehicle. A gate is a divisive instrument, does not allow for equal and equitable access to the marine facility. The capital costs associated with it, borne by the town's property owners, most of whom fall into the have-not category if a gate is installed. This is simply not fair and counter to the previous noted policy statement in that the intent is to provide equal and equitable access to the marine facility for all users. Council's responsibility to taxpayer to ensure the market wharf meets the current and future needs of residents, businesses, and visitors. A gate would mean the current needs of many residents to access the wharf by vehicle would be denied. All residents we've been in discussion with have expressed disapproval of closing the wharf to vehicular traffic. Not one single person we've been in contact with supports the concept of blocking vehicular access to the wharf for residents of this community. Critically important that all residents and visitors have access to the wharf, not just those who can physically walk the substantial distance to the pierhead and back. The demographics of our resident population dictates the current approach of limiting access to pedestrians is not acceptable. A little bit of a summary. The focal point of the town for decades, possibly centuries, provides a unique, all-encompassing view of our historic waterfront and surrounding areas. Long-standing tradition, center for appreciating the beauty and serenity of the town and surrounding views. It's a gathering point for social, community, visitor interaction. Must continue to be accessible for all residents and visitors to enjoy. Some recommendations, and I'll tell you, these are not just a bunch of people that got together and started writing things out. This is a professional did some of these recommendations, and I'd like for you to understand it wasn't me, it was somebody in our group, but they did an excellent job on some of the things that could have been done. We are concerned that the proposal to install a permanent gate may have precluded consideration of other mitigating control options which would help enhance personal safety and vehicle pedestrian interaction. These options include measures such as enhancing speed limit signage, improving lane markings, designating walking space for pedestrians, alerting pedestrians and drivers to use caution at all times, adding pedestrian lane markings on the west side of the approach wharf to clearly designate a pedestrian walkway along the west side of the approach wharf, increasing signage to direct pedestrians to pedestrian walkway. There should be 3 signs on both sides of the approach wharf directing pedestrian traffic to pedestrian walkway, delineated along the west side of the approach wharf. One set of 3 signs should be installed on the west side of the approach for pedestrian traffic heading out at the pier head. The other set of 3 signs should be installed on the east side of the approach wharf to guide pedestrians heading inbound from the pier head. Both the outbound and inbound set of signs should be direct pedestrians to use the pedestrian walkway delineated along the west side of the approach wharf. Parking, we no great changes there other than follow what we've been doing for years. 1 reserved space for each commercial fishing tour boat operator, local pleasure boaters, and I'm one of those. First come, first served. It has been forever. Parking efficiency certainly could be achieved by having lines painted to clearly mark parking spaces. We request the current gate barrier be removed immediately following accessibility, allowing accessibility to all traffic as has been the case for decades, and for council to abandon all consideration of installing a permanent gate. On behalf of our concerned citizen group and the other members of the community with whom we've had discussions, I would like to thank the mayor and council for the opportunity to present and express our concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fyander, for your detailed presentation. I'm certain that council will have that submission to look at again, and we certainly are not finished with the discussion of this issue. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Your worship,
Yes, Mr. Knopper.
since it's a presentation, is it possible for council just to respond? Just because the public that's watching. So last month, council actually made a decision to table the motion for a permanent gate. I believe that it was the will of majority of council that they were not prepared to put up a permanent gate at this particular time. So although I do appreciate the presentation, from my standpoint, council already made a decision that it wasn't something that they were looking to do at this time. I might be mistaken. And I do certainly value all the comments about the importance of the wharf. I completely agree. I certainly agree that everybody in town pays for that wharf. We have a constant battle between, user rates and tax bases and balancing kind of what the perfect combination is. But all members of our community use that wharf, and there's people with mobility issues, there's senior citizens that if we restrict the access to that wharf, that is the only way in which they can enjoy it. So council doesn't take that lightly, the restriction of the wharf. But there was just one thing in the presentation, a couple things, but one thing I just wanted to say is it said that emergency measures and sanctions are now being lifted through Atlantic Canada. Unfortunately, that is not a true statement. If they are doing it, they're actually going against guidelines. The public guidelines in place from the province of New Brunswick and the Department of Health and WorkSafe New Brunswick have remained consistent for businesses in the town of St. Andrews. The first thing, if you get audited after the risk assessment, which asks everybody to complete a risk assessment to determine the engineering, administrative controls, or the PPE controls necessary to mitigate the risk of COVID-19 exposure, is physical distancing, which states implement a 2-meter physical distance protocol for all employees, visitors, and customers. So the town of St. Andrews, when there's 50 people walking down that wharf after whale watching and cars going both ways, there's not enough room to physical distance. And as much as I would like to say just open it up during regular business hours, as part of our risk assessment, we cannot provide the physical distancing. We would love nothing more. Take that gate down and stop hearing about it. But we are going through a pandemic right now, and although it might be under the impression that these guidelines are being lifted, WorkSafe New Brunswick and the audits by the Department of Health have not changed for businesses in St. Andrews, and they have not changed for the town of St. Andrews. So I just wanted to respond to that comment just to clarify for the public is we have not had any relaxed guidelines that I'm aware of for the town of St. Andrews or businesses.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate your comments, and you are correct. The only thing that we did do was to delay any further decision about a permanent gate, and you're correct in that as well. Again, thank you, Mr. Fyander, and council will further review this matter, and it'll be ongoing. Okay, we'll move to the next presentation, and it goes back to Mr. Paul Knopper, our clerk, who's going to talk to us about the Downtown Water Street pilot project. Mr. Knopper?
Thank you, Mayor Naish. Give me 1 second as I set up my share screen here. Mayor, can you see the presentation?
I can.
Thank you. So council, Mayor Naish, the staff were directed to look into creating, looking at the pilot project and creating a survey to all of the Water Street businesses. Again, just a bit of a brief, the pilot project did take place on starting June 26th. As of July 8th, council requested staff to come up with a survey of Water Street businesses and find out how they're affected by the changes that council implemented. Within this, we were also asked to review with the Chamber of Commerce and the BIA for their feedback on this. The Chamber itself also conducted their own survey, SurveyMonkey online. So to give you an idea, the town received 23 surveys back through our process, and the Chamber received 37. Now, I will note that members of the Chamber that are not necessarily on Water Street did respond to their survey, but it's interesting to see the similar results. So when we looked at this, do you feel that, your business on Water Street, is it helping, hurting, or neutral? We've actually found that for the most part, it's been helping or neutral within the concept. So as you can see, well over 50% of the businesses in both surveys indicated that, it is helping or they're neutral to what's happened and occurred. The second question we asked is, what would you like the project to continue? And well over from ours and from the chambers, 50 to 58% of businesses said yes, and those that didn't answer or respond are indicated there. And then we asked overall how satisfied you are with the downtown and the project. So we did merge these into just 3 sections. They were originally very satisfied, satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied, and very dissatisfied, or not sure. You can really see it's a unique split on the town survey, but from the chambers, they got a little more of a neutral to satisfied with the downtown. So just to show you a little bit of the comparisons. Do you feel that the pilot project is helping to create social distancing space? For the most part, most people are saying yes. Most businesses are saying, 60, 65% are saying yes, it is creating social distancing. The unique one is the 8 feet of encroachment space. Most businesses are not using it, or it's not within their scope. So just to note that you can see it on most of Water Street. Businesses that are really using it are the restaurants, cafes. There's some businesses that do have some stuff out, but not using the whole 8 feet of encroachment space as provided. So some of the pros and the comments that we saw back from both, again, people would like the project to continue. They're thankful that the town stepped forward in a quick way. Big aspect, a lot of people really like the one-way traffic. One of the neat comments that I found from both surveys was businesses on side streets seem to be actually having an increased year because people are walking by their businesses. So although our project was to support the businesses on Water Street, we're seeing adjacent businesses actually being supported through this. As well, with no cars on the street, people feel safer and they're not afraid to step out or afraid of jaywalkers. Some of the cons, the barricades themselves are ugly and uncharacteristic of the town, so that's something that we've definitely heard multiple times. Difficult for seniors to park or access stores, so not necessarily that it's accessible parking spaces, but access to directly in front or close to the stores or businesses they would like to use. That some people are saying that people aren't using the sidewalk space the extra sidewalk space provided. Big one is people not knowing where to park in town, and we have worked very hard on that. Some additional suggestions that came from businesses, were like blocking off the streets for full pedestrian walking, looking at it from a Friday to Sunday aspect, the ability to decorate the barricades, shut it down like Canada Day. So we're getting a pretty similar theme from the comments coming back from businesses. But I just wanted to make some comments here that we've gotten from visitors. Probably one of the biggest ones that I've enjoyed hearing is from our accommodators. They're saying that the tourists and the visitors coming here feel safe in town. So I think that's a good standing point within this. St. Andrews is perceived as to be a safe place in New Brunswick. keeping, and this was a great one, the new normal is feeling like the old normal while simultaneously everyone is safe or safer. It's safer for cyclists. We've gotten that. And I think the other one we have to comment is businesses are making the visitors and residents feel safe. So I think that's kudos on to them. But in the grand scheme, we've provided this information to the chamber and to the BIA. We've had discussions with them. Deputy Mayor Henderson can speak a little bit more to this, but from their ask, they would like the project to continue as is. At this point, that is the end of the presentation, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Knopper. Deputy Mayor Henderson, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I do. So sorry about that. First of all, staff did present to the BIA and chamber a couple of different options, one of which looks significantly different than the existing pilot project. So kudos to town staff on that. It was a situation where that motion that we originally had said that the BIA had at any time the decision to cancel the downtown pilot project, and they made the decision to leave it as is. Majority of their members think that it is helping. As a council, we do recognize that a number of citizens do not like the look of it, and they find that parking is definitely an inconvenience. So we hear it, but we also respect the fact that the businesses themselves understand if it's helping their business or not, more than we do, and more than maybe even an expert on Facebook. So because of that, at that particular time, when we talked about it at council, it sounded like we were going to stay the course with the BIA's decision. That's pretty much all it is, other than we left it up to the business community and they told us to leave it as is.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in, and I think that kudos to staff for putting this all together on very short notice, very quickly. You know, there's mixed reviews on this whole thing, but I would suggest that if we're going to move forward with this next year or in the future, I think that it might be a good idea to consult with the residents of the town and get their viewpoints on this, because so far the only consultation has really been with the business community and the BIA and the chamber, and the residents really have not been consulted too much on this thing. And I think that's sort of something we can correct as we move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Groom.
And Your Worship, I could just add, although it's kind of a controversial issue in the town, I think that we have to just pause for a moment and reflect on how lucky we are as a community to see the traffic that we've seen. Not every area of New Brunswick or Atlantic Canada is benefiting right now off tourism. Not every community is able to keep their doors open. A lot of businesses are closing because they're that quiet. And I did have the opportunity to tour several communities just last week, and a lot of people were saying, "Could you please send some visitors from St. Andrews our way?" How fortunate we are to hear that some businesses are actually up for July versus last year. That is not something that any of us would have predicted. So although we may be arguing over gates, which I totally understand, that I agree they're ugly, and I'd rather have it like a normal summer. Just on a positive note, that we can all agree, how lucky are we to see our businesses doing as well as they are?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I might throw my 2 cents worth in. We're only looking at now another 4 weeks before the cycle would be completed as we originally agreed. And then we will do a full evaluation going forward into subsequent years. And hopefully by next year, COVID won't be the same issue that it is this summer. Keeping our fingers crossed, of course.
Your Worship, if I could chime in there.
Certainly,
Sorry,
Councillor Kulisha.
during Mr. Knopper's, the clerk's presentation, I didn't catch how many members are in the BIA. At the beginning, I had a bad connection there. How many people are in the BIA? Sorry, I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Through you, Your Worship,
Yes.
we didn't specify how many members were in the BIA. What I specified was that we received 23 surveys back from the town surveys, and 37 surveys were received by the Chamber of Commerce through their online survey.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering how many BIA members there were and how many responded. Also, just to follow up with some of the other comments, good job on amassing all that in a short time. And I think to Councillor Gru's point, consulting the residents that later this fall, we have the Transportation Master Plan presentation that we've been waiting for quite some time. And I think how you get around and how people move in the community seems to be a very a key part of people's appreciation and love of the town. So hopefully there'll be lots of people out for that transportation master plan, and we'll get lots of input there. Thank you, Worship.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Michelle. If there are no other comments from council, I want to thank again the presenters for this evening's, and we will then move ahead to the nitty-gritty business of the day, and we will look to move to the approval of minutes of previous meetings. I will go first. We'll go first to the minutes of the regular council meeting of July the 6th, 2020. Could I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. And a seconder? Councillor Gumichel, thank you. If there are any questions, if not, all in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Now we'll move to the minutes of the special meeting of council on July the 8th, 2020. A motion, please, to approve the minutes.
Move.
I didn't hear. Deputy
I
Mayor?
move, Your Worship. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Henderson. And a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Akaji. All in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. And we will move to the minutes of the public information session of July the 13th, 2020. A motion to approve those minutes, please.
I so move.
Also move.
Okay, Councillor Bishop, thank you. And a seconder?
So moved.
Councillor Gru, Your Worship.
Councillor Gru, thank you. Just having trouble picking up the... Okay, if there aren't any questions about that, all in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Then we will move to the minutes of the public information session of July 20th, 2020. Look for a motion, please.
So move.
Thank you. Councillor Akaji, and a seconder.
Councillor Gu, Michelle, Your Worship.
Councillor Gumichel, thank you. All in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Now we'll move to the minutes of the Public Information Center session on the July the 20th, 2020, please.
Also move.
Okay, Councillor Bishop, and a seconder.
I'll second that.
Councillor Gumichel, thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Now we will move to the public hearing of objections, which is on July 20th, 2020. Please, a motion, please.
I so move.
Councillor Gru, thank you. And a seconder.
I so move.
Councillor Akaji, thank you. All in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. And finally, we will move to the minutes of the Committee of Council meeting of July the 20th, 2020. A motion to approve the minutes.
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Akaji. And
Second.
the seconder,
Councillor.
Councillor Gumichel, thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes
Councilor
are,
Gummichel here. Could I chime in and just compliment the clerk on, these are the best minutes I've ever been in the 5 years I've been on council. Good job.
Thank you.
thank you, Councillor Gummichel. I agree with you. And, okay, all in favor, so those minutes also are approved, and now we can stop approving minutes for a little while. Thank you, Council. We have no communications officially, and now we will move to staff reports, and we will turn it over to Mr. Spear for his Chief Administrative Officer's report.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Before you tonight is the August 4th, 2020 Chief Administrative Officer report to Council. Once again, I appreciate the opportunity afforded to me to discuss the initiatives and projects of the Council and staff of the town of St. Andrews. Under Council, July was another extremely busy month for Council. You met 8 times throughout the month, discussing the many issues before you as you go through year 5 of your extended mandate. Before you tonight is a motion to continue the nuisance deer hunt for the 2020 season. Councillors and many residents feel there have been limited success in managing the herd within town through this program. Consequently, Council is hoping to meet with the Manager of Energy and Resource Development to look at alternative means to lowering the deer population and which in order to lower the risk of tick infestation and either pedestrian deer or motor vehicle deer incidents within St. Andrews. Also before you tonight are motions to move the secondary municipal plan, MP 2002, to second reading, obtain the views of PRAC, and set August 26th as the public hearing of objections. It has been a slow and arduous journey to get us to this point, but I applaud your dedication to see it through. Council is reviewing the offer from the province of New Brunswick to transition to the trunk mobile radio network for our fire service. The system provides superior communications to our firefighters and the ability to communicate seamlessly with other first responders throughout the region. To assist, the province is providing 7 radios and paying the network fees to facilitate the transition. As part of the process, dispatch will now be handled in St. John. This is a change as the St. Stephen Fire Department has provided this service for as long as I've been with the town. It should be noted 911 calls always went to the city, who in turn notified St. Stephen to dispatch appropriate fire personnel. The transfer of the dispatch should not delay responses. The St. John Center is also geared up for a higher level of service and redundancy. The transfer to the city services, which is costing 3 to 4 times what we paid in the past, is required to move to the new system. Also before Council tonight is a motion to accept, in concept, the St. Andrews segment of the Coastal Link Trail System. Once approved, funding will be made to allow us to upgrade portions of the system while working with interested parties on areas where the trail either crosses their land or is adjacent to their private property. If Council approves this tonight, the complete trail may take a couple of years until it's fully usable. In addition to the municipal plans and budget, Council is looking to add, finalize, and accept the Transportation Master Plan in their fall agenda. This is an important document that lays out the direction of the town should take to manage growth, increase the safety of our transportation networks, and encourage active transportation. Council should also review the long-term strategy for the courthouse and jail. We acquired the property a couple of years ago and continue to maintain and invest in it. By having a long-term plan of action, it will give staff, community organizers, and future councils direction on the acceptable purposes of the facility. From an administrative point of view, we had a presentation earlier tonight on the Water Street pilot project. There are mixed reactions within the community about it, but for those that council hope to benefit from it the most, the businesses along Water Street, there is a majority support to continue. At Town Hall and even personally, we've had many visitors in their area who let us know they appreciate the initiative and applaud us for the effort. Some businesses are indicating that the revenue compared to last year is up. Although we will not take full credit that our effort was totally responsible for this increase, we do believe it has helped. Consequently, I guess as noted earlier tonight, Council wishes to continue as planned until the end of the Labor Day weekend. There have been concerns expressed over the public regarding the partial restriction to vehicular access on the wharf. Primarily due to COVID-19, the ability for pedestrians to move unobstructed throughout the day has provided the desired social distancing and provided a safer environment. We are now removing the barriers at night to allow for full access, and we'll keep an eye on it for any issues. Council relook at this in the fall and determine if it is a strategy the town should continue to pursue in the future. The provincial government has made legislative changes that require earlier submissions of municipal budgets. Therefore, staff are now working on the 5-year budgets for submission to council by the end of August for discussion. As always, the discussions are an open session, and we would like to have the community consultation earlier to get feedback on some of the proposals, as well as input to any initiatives the citizens would like to see. A date has not yet been set for this, but likely mid to late September. I would like to bring to council's attention that the Nano Brewery proponents have been authorized to hook up to our water and sewer utility and can proceed forward with the town's support. I appreciate the collaboration of the DUSETs in getting to this point. The mayor and I met with Minister Anderson Mason in July to bring forward various files of St. Andrews. We are grateful for her support, as our riding is absent an MLA, and her willingness to bring council's concerns forward. Members of council and staff also met with senior members of the RCMP from J Division in late July. The purpose of the meeting was to let them know we would like to work with them to increase the level of service available for the town, and we brought suggestions forward towards that goal. They acknowledged our concerns and promised to work with staff to bring solutions before council. Another matter that has come up recently is the wide interpretation of what constitutes deer fencing within the town. The original intent was invisible mesh with near invisible poles that surround a garden bed. Currently, many installations go beyond this and fall into the definition of a fence, which were not permitted and do not meet the terms of the zoning bylaw. And what I mean by permitted is not getting a building permit. Council is aware of the situation and will be discussing it as part of the new zoning bylaw. Complaints are coming in from the community, so the concerns do go beyond our staff. There will be further clarification in the fall, so those interested can plan appropriately for next year. Any suggestions from the community are welcome as we struggle with this development as a result of a large deer population. The public should set aside September the 12th for a celebration of the 20th anniversary of Sheriff Andrews House. We're working with community volunteers to have an event worthy of this occasion. More information will follow this month. Under municipal services, the fire chief wants to remind everyone that the town has a bylaw regarding open fires in St. Andrews. Highlights include fires may only be within a CSA approved appliance that has a screened spark arrestor. Only dry firewood should be used, not leaves, yard debris, or construction debris. The smoke shouldn't create a nuisance for your neighbors, and you must be 4.5 meters away from any structure, which is approximately 20 feet. Chief Terrio is happy to meet with residents who have questions and can be reached at 529-5150, or give us a call at the town hall and we'll connect you. As many are aware, we have added a commissioner to aid in the enforcement of parking bylaws and to monitor parking patterns in the plat. As indicated in the bylaw enforcement officer's report, as of a couple of weeks ago, he has issued only 5 tickets, but 59 warnings. We hope the inclusion of this service is a benefit to property owners, who have been blocked in by cars in the past, and to drivers, as we are limiting to parking to one side of most streets to allow vehicles to pass safely. Also, the Commissioner is acting as an ambassador to visitors and providing direction and assistance. The clerk has been very busy this summer. In addition to the heavy meeting schedule, he has taken on the role of creating the COVID-19 operational plans of our facilities and providing communications to the public regarding the pandemic. He meets regularly with the public and has collaborated with the Age-Friendly Committee on the hiring of consultants to oversee an initiative funded by the Government of Canada. The Ross Memorial Library is slowly opening more services. They are doing a virtual reading club this summer and encourage the public to participate. There's also promotion sponsored by the Fundy Discovery Aquarium to provide free admittance ticket per library card to the general public. Please stop by and pick up yours. And as far as I know, that's available all across the Fundy region, not just at the Ross Memorial Library. Public Works have been busy going through the usual duties, including the planning and execution of the pilot project. We would like to express our appreciation for all those who did not park on Water Street on the initial morning and made that setup that much easier. I would also like to update the public on our street repair program. Typically, one of the contractors that produces hot asphalt sets up in the area so we can get the product with our own trucks. This year, the closest plant ended up in St. John, and to keep the material pliable by keeping it warm, we hire a contractor with a heated dump, which is much larger than ours. To make it all work effectively, Public Works prepped many areas across town, so when the trucks came, they could lay the paving down and move on to the next spot. We realized for a couple of weeks in July, the roads in town had a lot of gravel cuts in them, but most are filled in as of this council meeting. We appreciate the public's patience and understanding of this matter. As a quick update to capital projects, most of the capital programs have been completed. A quick update on the remainder include the Wellness Center and the arena is progressing as the crack fill, prime, and paint the walls, complete the HVAC, and install the windows. Completion by the end of October is still anticipated. The utility department acquired its new half-ton truck, which is more practical than the quarter-ton truck we were using. A cab to hold tools and materials will be installed in a few weeks as we are waiting delivery. And the SCADA system update is near completion as we wait the delivery of 3 lift stations to finalize the upgrades of the sanitary sewer system. As a conclusion, we always appreciate the comments of the public and review them all for consideration. Some matters can be handled by staff and others do have to go to council. We are always happy to meet with you by appointment to review any concerns you would like to bring forward. Although we monitor social media, we prefer direct messaging through emails, letters, or phone conversations to an open post, which may go unnoticed. And respectfully submitted, Chris Spear, Chief Administrative Officer and Treasurer, Town of St. Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Spear, for your excellent report. And just a comment from me, the reports of your staff, which don't always make it to the big time because there are too many of them and they're too extensive and good, but we have all had that opportunity to read them. So it's very impressive to see what your staff are producing, from which you pick out the things that council hears and the public hears at these meetings. So I think we're on a roll in terms of the effectiveness of the reporting system that you've put in place. So thank you.
Thank you, Worship.
Speaking of those reports, unless there's comments for Mr. Spear, if there are any questions from council, if not, I would look for a motion to approve all of the staff reports other than the financial reports, and we will go back to Mr. Spear for his comments about the financial reports. So could I have a motion to approve the staff reports, please?
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. And the seconder? Councillor Grew, thank you. If there are no questions on the staff reports, all in favor of approving the staff reports, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the staff reports are approved. And then we will now go to the financial reports, and I'll just turn it over to Mr. Spear to see if he has any comments in relation to the financial reports.
Thank you, Worship. I guess one thing to let council know is that you had accepted a budget on May the 11th of this year, which took into effect the effects of COVID, and staff worked hard to reduce a lot of costs and projects in order to get through the year. As you can see right now on this report, our expense savings for the first 6 months are still down at $260,000. I don't expect that to continue for the rest of the years. We still kind of held off on projects and things just to see what the effects of COVID were. But there are many initiatives that we're taking on this fall and even during the summer in order to meet the needs and services of the town of St. Andrews. So a lot of those savings will diminish over the course of the year. I will say though, the policing costs are going to be down for the first 6 months, as the first 2 bills had less than a full complement of officers. So, you know, regardless of your feeling on not having a full 3 officers, at least we're getting some savings for that we can carry forward to the end of the year. So right now we have savings of about $462,000 that we carried forward for a few months. But as discussed, and we'll be updating council with the budget, and by late September, early October, we'll have a better idea of what 2020 will look like and be able to update council as a whole and the public on our anticipated finish to the year to see how we did and to use any unused funds if they're there to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. I think we can now move forward to the consideration of motions. And I'll turn it over to Councillor Bishop for Finance and Administration.
Thank you, Mayor. The first motion is reference number FA 200409B, and it's dated July 22nd, 2020. The subject is Amendment A-9 to bylaw number 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates. This is the second reading. The background. Several properties in town have water and sewer services, but because the buildings have been demolished and there has been no water consumption for several years, the practice of the town has been to bill the minimum fee for these services as stated in the current water and sewer bylaw. There have been requests from several landowners to reconsider this practice, provided is a draft amendment to Section 5. Motion report, motion 243, July 20th, first reading. The motion is that council moves to grant leave for second reading of Amendment A-9 to bylaw number 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please?
Councillor Harrison, Your Worship.
Councillor Harrison, sorry, Councillor Harrison, I didn't hear you. Thank you. Any questions in relation to the motion from council? If not,
Your Worship, sorry, Your Worship, through you, if I can, I don't want to interrupt any other
certainly.
councillors.
No, that's fine, Mr. Spear. Go ahead.
Okay, there's 2 things. I was on vacation for a week in July and allowed me to think some of this stuff through a little better. A couple of things that kind of came up to my mind was whether or not there should be a retroactive date on this bylaw that we could amend for third reading. Because currently there's been a couple of properties that have been accruing water charges, and whether or not we want to backdate this maybe for a full year. Number 2, there should have been an amendment to the wording, which I didn't think about till recently, that under it says the obligations of the owner. Basically it says a homeowner can request after paying applicable fees to have the water disconnected. But proper management of the water system, that they're also responsible for what's called capping the system. So essentially they just can't go and knock down their building and walk away, that there's actually something they have to have a plumber or someone come in and that disconnects the water supply from the town's water supply so that it's not creating any back siphoning into the system. So if council is okay, there probably should be added before third reading, those two motions. The retroactive, I'd look for council's direction, but the second is an important element regarding that the proper capping take place before it's approved.
Okay, Mr. Spears, so I think we're probably okay to proceed to second reading with the advice that you've given us to make a modification before third reading to incorporate those details that will strengthen the motion. Councillor Grew?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would concur with the CAO's comment about the capping. That's an important aspect. With regards to making it retroactive, I would suggest that no, we just, the language of the motion is that the town will prorate any future billings. And there's no requirement for the town to make it retroactive. And it would make it a lot neater if we just made it just moving forward from now, rather than going retroactive.
Okay, thank you. We'll incorporate your comments into the committee meeting before we go to third reading. Thank you, Councillor Grew. Okay, look, I'll call the question then. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes, and therefore I will read this amendment for the second time. It's very short. I'll read the entire thing. This is amendment number A-9 to bylaw number 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates. Being an Andrews that bylaw number 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates is hereby amended as follows. Number 1, by adding to section 5 with the following. 5, obligations of the owner. H, in the event of the demolition of the primary structure at a service location, a homeowner can request, after paying applicable fees, to have the water disconnected. The town will prorate any future billings based on the disconnection and eventual reconnection of the service. So this is read now for the second time on the 4th day of August, 2020. Thank you, Council. We'll move forward. Councillor Bishop?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The next item is FA 00701, July 22nd, 20. Subject is Amendment A-10 to Bylaw 16-03, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of the Town of St. Andrews. This is the first reading. The Council of the Town of St. Andrews has requested a change to the regular council meeting start schedule. The request was to change the meeting time from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. The motion is the council moves to grant first reading of Amendment A-10 to Bylaw 16-03, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the town of the Council of the Town of St. Andrews.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that motion, please?
I second that motion.
Okay, Councillor Grew, thank you. Questions, Council?
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
We've been doing a lot of 6 p.m. meetings before our 7 p.m. meeting. So what's going to happen to those? Is there a plan? Are we going to go to 5 p.m. for our presentation style meetings now? Or what's the idea there?
I guess
Mr. Knopper,
if you
could
mind,
you-
Worship, sorry.
Sorry?
It's an excellent question, and probably 5 o'clock is too early because of some of the councillors' work. We can have that discussion, and of course, for the public, it may not be appropriate. But what we could do is, except for the regular meeting, we can still have these other meetings at 6 o'clock and then have special meetings. So we're really just talking about the first Monday meeting of every month. That'll start at 6 o'clock from now on.
Okay, so essentially what we're suggesting is that we won't have any meetings before 6 o'clock, and we'll work it out from there, I assume.
Sorry,
I'm-
just
That's
just
up to the will of council, your worship, but yes,
Right.
that would be probably the idea.
sorry, Chris, can you repeat that? I don't have the best connection and I'm on Wi-Fi. I'm sorry. The first Monday of the month would be 6 o'clock and everything else would be 7 o'clock, or everything would be?
No, this particular motion only talks about the first Monday meeting, but as council is aware, we've been doing most meetings at 6 o'clock. But our current procedural bylaw requires the regular monthly meeting, which is the first Monday, to be at 7. And so we're amending that so that too can also be at 6 o'clock. In regards to Councillor Harrison's questions about having pre-meetings to the regular meeting, they'll have to be booked at other points in the month now, instead of having a 6 o'clock, or incorporated into the 6 o'clock meeting as a presentation or something, instead of having 2 separate meetings is another way we could do it. Depending on what's before council.
May I say something?
Certainly.
I find meetings at 6 o'clock are somewhat problematic for the simple reason that it's hard if you've been doing other things all day to get home, get some food into yourself, and get to a meeting for 6 o'clock. So I can only imagine for somebody that's employed. I'm retired, but I still do lots of things. So anyway, that's just my opinion, and I don't know whether we could meet halfway and say the regular meeting would be at 6:30. That might sort of help people a little bit. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor.
Your worship?
Any other comments? If not,
Councillor Grudy, your worship.
Yes, your worship.
yes,
I just to chime in is first off, we've gotten into a trend where most of our meetings start at 6 anyway, whether we want to or not. The previous
you're pretty busy, yes.
The other thing I just want to throw out there is perhaps this might be a good opportunity to, I've long since thought that having the meeting on a Monday is problematic because most of the holidays happen on Mondays. And perhaps this might be an opportunity where we could move the meeting to a Wednesday. And then what that does is it gives staff until Friday to prepare all of the documentation for us. And it makes it easier for staff to prepare for our meetings. And then we wouldn't be jumping all over the place, and we would just have a meeting on Wednesday instead. Just food for thought for council to consider.
Yeah, Councillor Grew, that's it is good food for thought because we continuously, almost every second month, we have to change our meeting like we did today, for example, because we have a statutory holiday on Monday, right? So
yeah.
Almost like we're fighting a losing battle. And so, council, what's anybody else have a view on that? I mean,
I guess if I could follow up from Councillor Grew on one point, that I think we are doing a lot of 6 p.m. meetings now, and maybe those should be switched to 7 p.m. because no, I'm not joking. All these other meetings, you really can't get home and eat it. I've been eating at 11 at night, at 10 at night. And the whole reason to have the 7 p.m. meeting is so you had time to do these things. So, yeah, I tend to agree with Councillor Grew. I think maybe all of these meetings should go back to 7 o'clock. And I think we need a hard 2-hour limit. No vote, nothing. It just ends after 2 hours. And if we can't fit it all in, that's our fault. And, you know, we move on. We do it at the next meeting.
Your worship.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just about moving it to Wednesday, I think we should check with the Regional Service Commission because we asked the planners to come a lot. So we want to make sure that that's something that works for them. Maybe check in with staff to make sure that they don't have any personal life commitments before making the change. And then also check in with CHCO TV as they still are a way for us to get communication out on regular meetings that are vital. So there's a little bit of homework we need to do before making a change. I do like Wednesday better than Tuesday, simply the fact I know it's bingo night, I think, at CHDL, so they wouldn't be able to air. You get my point, is we could look to find out what works for everybody before making that change. I see both sides of it. There is times that I barely am able to eat before I get here. My camera's off earlier while there's presentations because I was actually having my supper. So I definitely feel, but in the same sense, making decisions at 10:30 at night, we shouldn't be doing that. It's not, the public isn't going to stay on with us. And to be honest with you, it's just, sometimes we're just trying to get through it as quick as possible at that time of night. So I think the 2-hour time limit or whatever is a good rule. I think it'd be a good compromise, but we have to be willing to accept the fact that we're going to have to reschedule our stuff. Just because we didn't get through it all doesn't mean that the community isn't looking for answers on very important policies and bylaws and rulings.
Deputy Mayor, I think I'm getting a flavor here, and it sounds like the flavor is that we need to take another look at the entire procedural bylaw, at least that portion of it, when we schedule meetings. So maybe we should stand down this motion for the time being. And Mr. Knopper, I think this is going to fall back on your lap, so that what I keep saying to you, that the reward for good work is more work, is happening again here, I think.
I move, Your Worship, just for formality, I move to table the motion.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I second the motion.
Seconder for that motion?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Okay, I got lots of seconders. Popular motion. All in favor of tabling this motion for further review, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll table that motion. Thank you, everyone. Right. Councillor Groot.
You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on,
Councillor Grew, you're still on.
Just
Sorry.
talking to myself there. The next item is reference number PS 200304A. The subject is the Provincial Emergency Communications Agreement. The background: the Department of Public Safety for the province of New Brunswick is transitioning to the trunk mobile radio system and encouraging all municipalities to move to the system. For further information on the system and process, please consult the staff report provided. To move forward with the project, town would sign into a contract with the St. John Board of Police Commissioners to engage in the services. So the first motion is move that council moves the, I move that council moves to sign an agreement with the St. John Board of Police Commissioners for the new trunk mobile radio system for emergency services.
Okay, can I have a seconder for that motion,
I
please?
second that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Akaji. Comments, Council, and perhaps we might get Mr. Spear to give us just a quick briefing on the background memo, not necessarily going through the whole thing.
Sorry, Your Worship, I guess before I interrupt council, was there any council input before I kind of give my 10 cents worth? Okay, just didn't want to interrupt. So council, thank you for this. So this has been an ongoing project that primarily was a result of that terrible incident in Moncton a few years ago. That it was established that there was some poor communication to various first responders, including different detachments of the RCMP. And so one of the recommendations of the inquiry was to move into the style of system. So the system basically provides 7 radios to the department in order for us to be in contact with all the other fire services, but it also gives us contact to Ambulance New Brunswick, police services as needed, and actually all departments within the provincial government. So it's an extremely powerful tool, and without going too far into depth, basically it has an unlimited number of channels. So it's not like you're going to hear a lot of chatter like you might hear on a VHF radio, that when there's an incident, whoever's responding can be put to that specific channel, and that everything can be coordinated accordingly. Now, one of the things that did come up because a result of this was, in order to meet the qualifications, I guess, or the requirements in order to be met to operate the center, we have to join up with the St. John Dispatch Center, which is currently operated by the St. John Board of Police Commissioners. Going through the contract, I do have some concerns as it's a very one-sided affair. This was basically given to us, it was given to us about a month and a half ago, but we've looked through it, but really it was given, I think it's a template for every municipality in the province. It is a 5-year agreement, which is renewable for 3 years. But the problem I come up with is basically all responsibility for any problems fall back on the municipality. And there is a section there that says that if the St. John dispatch system screws up, it's up to the town of St. Andrews to defend them in court. And so I've got grave concerns on the wording of a lot of this. There's also a lot of the things can be seen by our TIPA. And again, the system itself is very strong. It's just the way the contract is written. I have some grave concerns about the liability the town of St. Andrews is assuming, and especially where it was basically take it or leave it type of scenario. So I don't know if we have much leeway at this, but another concern I have is the costing of it is, 0.6 of a penny per $100 of assessment, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we only paid $7,000 for our dispatch service in St. Stephen in the past. Now our share alone is going to go up to $21,000, but when you add in the LSDs, the total cost is probably going to be closer to $30,000 or $32,000. So the costs are going up significantly. The costs go up according to how much our assessment goes up. So it's not a fixed cost. And to this point in time, I've never seen a reason for what the costs are that have gone to the St. John Police Commissioner's homepage, but all their financial statements, which are typical, are combined with their regular police department. So we're not exactly sure how much we're subsidizing, or even if we are, the total cost of the dispatch center in St. John. I'm sure it's a concern of many of the municipalities within our region, if not across the province, because the fee itself is flat right across. So everyone's paying the same exact rate as the cost of their assessment. It will just change depending on how much your assessment is. So I don't know if council really wants to table this, as it's an important piece. I don't know if we have enough time to really negotiate with them, but I certainly feel that through the UMNB, you might want to increase smaller municipalities' participation in this somehow, so that somebody understands what is going into the costing of these centers, and that all councils can feel protected, and also that we're not subsidizing the cost of these centers beyond what our actual needs are. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Council?
Your Worship,
Yes.
so I know it's important to get it in place. So what happens if we table it? Are we in the kind of the last hour of this thing, or do we have opportunity to I guess you could almost say rally the troops? I'm wondering if there's not an opportunity for yourself to talk to the CAO of St. George and St. Stephen and through the Union of Municipalities, because alone we're probably not going to have much leverage or much ability to change a standard contract that's being offered to all municipalities. But together we have a larger voice, and you might be able to implement some change. So I'm wondering what happens if we table it, and B, if we do table it, is it too late to rally some support? Because alone we're not going to change this.
Deputy Mayor, that's a good point, and I think we can table it if that's what council so wishes. They certainly want us to sign on. We're one of the last regions to get mobilized on this. But the fact remains that Mr. Spear has come across what are actually some legal questions that I think we should have perhaps our legal counsel and maybe our insurer find out what our liability would end up being with that kind of wording of the contract. So I think whether they want us to sign on or not, if we took another month or two to do this, I think that would be prudent in my view.
Your Worship?
Councilor Groom?
Thank you. I think our CAO has done his due diligence and has flagged some concerns to us, and I think we would be very wise to act on his concerns. And the deputy mayor has indicated, I think, that we would stand a better chance as a group rather than alone. And I think the idea of going to UMNB and with St. George and St. Stephen and bargaining as a group is a very good one. The other concern I have is that once we sign this agreement, we're locked in. And at the end of the agreement, they may say, okay, all this free service that you're getting is now canceled and you're going to have to pay X number of dollars. And we are completely at the mercy of the St. John Police Force as to what the fees are going to be in the future. So I'm very concerned that when I read the contract, as Mr. Spear indicated, I thought it was very one-sided, and we didn't have very much control there at all. So I think it's worth having that second look and possibly negotiating some sort of an agreement that is beneficial to both parties, not just one.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Grew. Anyone else?
Just your worship, is there
Deputy Mayor?
is there any risk by tabling this that we're not going to have a service, or are we still cover? You know what I mean? I know we have the ability to table it, but I just want to make sure that there's no gap in service, as it's such a critical service for our community. We got to be sure that time doesn't expire and then we're kind of left on our own, right?
Mr. Spear, what's your sense of that? My sense is that it's not like if we don't sign today, we're in trouble. I think if we didn't sign for 6 more months, we'd be in trouble. But I think we've got a bit of time to go back to the drawing board here.
We certainly,
Spear?
St. Stephen is responsible, Your Worship, for the next 90 days, regardless, that they have to honor that. And I'd be pretty hard pressed to think that if the town was an extra month, that the province of New Brunswick would allow us to drop out of the 911 service and create a blackout zone. So I wouldn't push our luck, but I'm sure we're not going to lose any level of service by doing our due diligence over the next month or so. And staff will get right on this, and we'll have at least some update in the next 2 or 3 weeks, just to see what other municipalities are thinking, and to raise our concerns with those at public safety and possibly even the St. John Police Commission, about our concerns. And they may say, okay, it is worth talking about. So, this hasn't been brought to their attention yet, so maybe they will be in better discussion. I do appreciate your comment about the insurance company, because they'll be a vested party in it, and certainly may have a little more sway than Town of St. Andrews, a major insurance company. So we'll take all that and start working on it immediately to make the proper contacts.
Okay, Council, does that seem sensible to all of us? And we'll look for a motion to table, and Mr. Spear will make this a priority to get us the rest of the information that we need to have.
For formality, I make a motion I move to table this motion as well.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Grew. All in favor of tabling the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Council. I think this is prudent of us to take a little more time.
And I will assume that motion PS 200-304B is also tabled, since that was to provide 90 days notice in writing to the Town of St. Stephen to withdraw from the current agreement.
Yes.
Correct.
That's an included tabling.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Grew.
Okay, the next item is PS 200702, and the subject is the nuisance deer hunt. Background: the Town of St. Andrews has started to receive calls on the application of landowners and hunters for the 2020 nuisance deer hunt. To move forward with the 2020 nuisance deer hunt in the Town of St. Andrews, the council must formally request permission to host the hunt from the Minister of Energy and Resource Development. The motion: the council moves to formally request permission from the Provincial Minister of Energy and Resource Development for approval of a 2020 nuisance deer hunt within the Town of St. Andrews limits.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please?
Councilor
Councillor Michelle, thank you. Comments, Council?
I look forward to Minister Holland coming to visit with us and finding ways to expand the nuisance deer hunt in the Town of St. Andrews.
Thank you. And Mr. Nopper, that's looks like it's scheduled for the 12th of August at this, we hope.
Through Your Worship, I will get confirmation for you tomorrow. I was with discussion with his office today, so I will have that confirmed for you tomorrow.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So if there are no other comments, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion is passed. Councilor Goodmichelle.
Thank you, Worship. From the Rec and Community Services portfolio, reference number RCS 200602, dated July 22nd, 2020, submitted by myself, and the subject is the proposed Coastal Link Trail route. The background reads, at the July 2020 regular council meeting, a presentation was provided from the Coastal Link Trail Committee on a proposed route to connect the East Coast Greenway from the United States and the Trans-Canada Trail. Before making a motion on the route, the council requested staff to host a public information session to receive feedback on the trail route. Please see the staff report attached for feedback from the public information session held on July 20th, 2020. Before the trail link can be finalized, staff will work with those private landowners on agreements to ensure the trail link can be completed as proposed. And action, the motion reads that council moves to accept the proposed Coastal Link Trail route for the town of St. Andrews under the conditions that agreements can be made with the Algonquin Hotel, Kingsbury Garden, the Cemetery Board, and additional private landowners as necessary.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please?
I'll second it.
Yep, thank you, Councilor Bishop. Comments, Council?
Has everything with Brandy Cove Road been in the rearview mirror through your worship?
I think so, Deputy Mayor. We've had some preliminary discussions with the not the landowner, the surrounding landowner. The Brandy Cove Road is public road. It's our road, but it does go through the center of private property. And we made great progress in that first discussion, and I'm anticipating that the big thing for us will be if we don't pass this, then we're not in the game for applying for the funding that we're going to need in order to do the infrastructure improvements for a number of places along the way within the route. So that's I think we're good.
Through your worship,
Yes.
if I may.
Yep.
I just to go on that a little bit further, I don't think the deputy mayor says it's in the rear view mirror. I wouldn't say it's in the rear view mirror. I'd say it's more that it's still a focal point, that this motion is to accept basically in principle the route, and that we still have to negotiate with some of them and discuss. There are needs of some of the landowners that will have to be brought before council the next few weeks or few months to look this over. But I think it would be good to, at least in concept, to put this, to give staff direction of where you want the route. Then we know who to proceed with and who to negotiate with and to discuss with, and bring any concerns they have before council for formal negotiations, or if need be, a user agreement on their property.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Other comments?
Your worship,
Yes.
if I may, the motion itself indicates additional private landowners as necessary. Have we identified any additional private landowners that we have to get agreements from?
Not through me, or sorry, your worship. I haven't identified at this point. It's just to be 100% sure. That would be brought to council. I don't think there's any more, but until we go step by step along the route and make sure that we aren't crossing anyone's private property by accident. Certainly those that are listed by name are the major landowners, but you just have to make sure that there's not a PID or a property line that goes across this proposed route that we missed in the initial concept.
Thank you, Mr. Spear.
Just a point, and you may want to investigate this, Mr. Spear, is I think that part of the trail, I'm not sure, 100% sure on this, I think part of it goes across, and you'll have to close your ears there, Deputy Mayor, may go across Mrs. Fleemer's land. I'm not sure about that. It might be Kingsbury, all Kingsbury land, but it might be partially Mrs. Fleemer's land.
It's both.
Yeah, So again,
Yeah,
that's one
so
of your
we'll-
private landowners.
Yeah.
So you'll have to reach an agreement there as
sure.
well.
Yeah, no, certainly we'll, like I said, we'll follow the trail and look 100% to see what the easements and stuff are in existence and set up the proper agreement that is required to keep this thing going forward for basically eternity after it's been set up.
Mr. Spear, I think one of the things we might inform the public of is just the context of this. This isn't something that's going to get done in 3 weeks. This is something that might take 3 years before the whole thing is implemented, piece by piece kind of thing. So not that we don't want it to get done in 3 weeks, but it just isn't going to happen that way. And it's going to depend upon pretty big amounts of federal and provincial funding, I would assume. Hopefully we will get that in order to play our part in the coastal trail.
Yeah, you're correct, Your Worship. But I guess I would say that if this council, before your mandate, can come into agreement with these various landowners that and adjoining properties, that we might be able to get a substantial amount of this work completed next year. So
Good.
you're right in saying that we aren't guaranteeing this whole route is going to be open to the public, immediately. It is, however, doable, I think, that if staff works away at it and works with council on it, that by mid to late next summer, that the whole route could be available for use. And again, depending on funding, we're assuming that a big chunk of it's going to come from the federal government. So if it doesn't, that may change our timeline a little bit. But right now, they're making a big investment in active transportation. And we've been told St. Andrews is earmarked as one of their, I won't say preferred routes, but one of the projects on their highlights that they're considering. So the quicker we move on this, the better it will be for the community.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. I have 3 motions coming up. So PED 200102C, PED 200102D, and PED 200102E. And it's all in regards to the secondary municipal plan bylaw 20-02, second reading. And so the first one, C, is, or the background is, the council has been working on moving the secondary municipal plan, MP 20-02, forward since February 2020. In March, the project was moved to the next council for review and continuance. Due to COVID-19 and no municipal elections, the council has asked for the document to come forward. In July 2020, town staff hosted a public information session on the secondary municipal plan. And there's an attached report for the comments of that. And then, so the timeline of this, in Feb 2020, we did a first reading. Also Feb 2020, we tabled the motion for PRAC. In Feb 2020, we tabled the motion for the public hearing of objections. So if I proceed to the actual motions, for PED 200102C, the motion is, I move that council grant leave for second reading to the secondary municipal plan bylaw MP 20-02.
Hey, could I have a seconder for that motion, please? Did I miss somebody for a seconder?
Nobody has seconded yet, Your Worship.
Okay.
I so move.
A second.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
You would have saved us a
Comments?
lot of time had you not.
Council, any further comments from council?
Your Worship,
Yes.
I thought it was good to make Xander sweat a little bit there. I just wanted to state for the members of the public that are listening, the plan right now is to have the, based on public feedback that we've received, is to have the municipal plan, the secondary municipal plan, and the zoning bylaw all approved for third reading at the same meeting so that the public can see them all together. Are we still going ahead with that plan, Mr. Gopin?
I haven't heard any further discussion from council about that, but I mean, everything I've heard up to this point sort of indicates that we are moving in that direction, and there's no issues for me in that regard.
Thank you.
Good. Great.
Your worship, if I may, just quickly.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Gopin is absolutely right that there really is no legal issues with it. We just have to be awful careful. Just remember, the municipal plan is what drives the other two. If you go back and make an amendment to the municipal plan, we're going to delay the whole process by a month or something as we go through all these series of meetings again. So that's really why the municipal plan is best to approve it before the other documents are finalized, so you're not keep going in circles. But council wishes to do them all at once, that's sufficient. But it's just not the recommended in most cases.
But for tonight, we're only looking at second reading of the secondary municipal plan. So Mr. Spear's comments may pertain to the third, when we get to third reading of the municipal plan. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, then we will move to second reading. Certainly going to do this by title. So go to the title, part 1 of the secondary. This is, maybe I should read it. The most important thing is, this is in fact the St. Andrews Municipal Plan 2020 for the Historic Business District and Town Plat and Environs Secondary Municipal Plan, bylaw MP 20-02. And I will turn to reading by title. Part 1 is background, 1.0 is title, 1.1 is area of coverage, 1.2 is purpose, Part 2 is objectives, policies, and proposal, 2.1.1 objectives, 2.1.2 policies, 2.1.3 proposal, and then Schedule A is a map of the Historic Business District and Town Plat and Environs. Schedule B is design guidelines, and Schedule C is exempt properties. So therefore read for the second time this 4th day of August 2020. Councillor Harrison, back to you.
Thank you. So the next motion is PED 200102D, and the motion is I move that council request written view of the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee on the proposed secondary municipal plan bylaw MP 20-02 in accordance with section 110 of the Community Planning Act.
Can I have a seconder for that motion, please?
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Comments from council? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. That motion to refer this to the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee is passed. Councillor Harrison.
And then finally, PED
Excuse me, Your
2001.
Worship, I have a point of order.
Yes.
When you read the secondary municipal plan, is there not a section 3? I'm looking at the plan right now, and my copy has a section 3 in it, and that was not read by title. And there's a section 4 as well. So you only read section 1 and 2.
There's a part 1 and 2.
But part of the secondary municipal plan was not read.
Well, I read my title, and I think it's,
Through you, your worship, looking at the table of
Yes.
contents versus the document itself, Councillor Grew is correct. You're missing section 3, which would involve the Plats and Enviros manual. And then there's a section 4 as well.
all right. How do we correct this, Mr. Knopper?
And section 4 would be the appendices. I would go back and reread, your worship, just the reread by title, with the additions of sections 3, which you're talking the Plats and Enviros manual. My recommendation is go through your pages. Give me 1 second, the page numbers here.
If I'm wondering also, if you go to the page after the table of contents, is that not the actual bylaw?
That's correct. If I could just follow up, Council, there's 2 actually documents there. So there's the secondary municipal plan, which only has the 2 sections. Then an appendice to that is the design guidelines, which is where the clerk and Councillor Grew are picking up. Perfectly blunt, I don't really know if you have to read that, but it might not hurt for clarity's sakes to include that as part of the appendice.
But the way the manual, or the way that the document is written, the section 3 of the bylaw says Plat and Environs Manual. And
But
section 4,
Councillor Grew,
yes,
if you go to page 3 of that document, I think page 3 is the actual bylaw that we need to read, not the table of contents.
Right.
It's
but
probably
section
shorter than
4
the
of
table of
bylaws-
contents.
Section 3 and 4 are included as part of the bylaw.
It's also listed on page 123. There's the introduction and it has all the list.
Councilor Harrison, are you suggesting that it needs to be read, not the,
Well, I mean, I think that's the actual bylaw, isn't it? The page 3 being page 115 of our package.
right?
And it incorporates by reference the actual, that document that we keep calling the secondary plan. Maybe this is a time for Mr. Gopin to lead the way.
Mr. Gopin?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm honestly, the way you folks read by title, the second, I mean, the design manual is an appendix, but it's an important part. And I would say just to cover the bases, probably better to read more than read less. I mean, it is in some ways more the design, the appendix is in some ways more important than the kind of bylaw language itself. So,
Yeah, but I did cite the appendix.
yeah,
And I read
yeah.
by its title.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't think it. I think we're kind of splitting hairs here. And normally, you wouldn't read sections of an appendix if you're reading a bylaw by title. I don't believe.
That would be correct. Whatever makes your worship feel better.
Well, except that, the 3 appendix are about 50% of the entire document.
Well, to be safe,
Council.
your worship, why don't you just read them by title for each appendix? Say Appendix A, read
I did.
the sections, and then Appendix B.
I did do that.
Oh, boy.
Read.
Through you, your worship, you did say Schedule A and map of historic business district and town plats, Schedule B, design guidelines, and Schedule C, exempt properties. You did say those through your
Right. That's the title, right?
the title.
So I'm off the hook, right?
Through your worship, I believe you've got everything covered at this point.
All right. We'll figure it out before third reading, okay?
Your worship,
Yes.
just a clarification, there seems to be, I must be reading something wrong here because it seems like the on page 114 where you have the essentially the table of contents that you it does jive with the titles that are in the document. Like section 1 in my document says introduction, authority and purpose. I'm just trying to figure out how it relates, because it doesn't seem like they're the same documents. I don't know, I'm missing something.
If I may, I don't have the council package in front of me, but the contents of the secondary municipal plan
Oh,
are part 1 background, 1.0 title, 1.1 area of coverage, 1.2 purpose, part 2 objectives, policies, proposal, 2.1.1 objectives, 2.1.2 policies, 2.1.3 proposal, and then Schedule A map, Schedule B design guidelines, and Schedule C exempt properties.
okay, I see my error here is that the actual bylaw is 2 pages long.
1 page.
One.
The actual bylaw is page 115 of our package. It's 3
Okay.
paragraphs long.
And what has me confused is I'm looking at Schedule B, the design manual. Okay, I got you. I
Okay,
think,
guys, that's good.
Your worship.
That's good. Thank you, Councilor Groot.
Keeping us on our toes. Okay, PED 200102E. This motion is move that council set 6 p.m. on August 26, 2020 at the W.C. O'Neill Arena, an electronic meeting for the public hearing of objections for the secondary municipal plan bylaw MP 20-02 in accordance with section 111 of the Community Planning Act.
Could I have a seconder for that motion, please? Somebody want to second that?
I'll second it again to end the silence.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I'm not sure I like doing public meetings at the moment on this sort of thing. Because to get everyone up into that ballroom is a pretty big kind of choke point where everyone's going up those stairs or in that elevator. And I know we got to figure out at some point, but between Zoom, having people write in and other methods, even a call and just however, I think people can get their objections done. I don't know if we need to start kind of herding everyone up to the ballroom yet. And I'm not even saying this as in terms of council meeting together, but I just don't know if we need the general public all in at this point when it's pretty easy to get people onto the internet or get them to write a letter or what have you.
Seems to me that we specified electronic meeting in the motion.
It's both though.
Is it?
Yeah. W.C. O'Neill Arena and electronic
Oh,
meeting.
yes.
You would have,
Okay,
you-
you're right.
you'd have to put the chairs 2 meters apart and obviously limit it as a result.
Mhm.
I'm not as worried about when people get into that big room because I think people can, stand apart. Although I don't know if Vicky should have her big furry microphone, but it's more getting people up into there. It's kind of a choke point a bit, like everyone's going to go through a little hallway and up through the elevator or the stairs. But I don't know, maybe I'm just worrying over it and I shouldn't be. But I'm
Mr.
sure
Knopf-
staff has a good plan to get it done. But
Through
Mr.
your
Knopper,
worship.
is there an absolute requirement that we have a personal hearing of objections in this case?
No, your worship, the council previously amended the procedural bylaw to allow electronic meetings. You know, we will say that some councils are starting to get together. Staff can basically act as bouncers to prevent people from going in more than one party at a time, you know, get to the top of the stairs before we let somebody else in. But I strongly suspect that if we're going to do it electronically, which we're planning on doing, probably the only people in that room will be mostly us, and that most of the public will choose to attend through this way instead of working their way up to the arena. Councillor Grew has a question, your worship, or a
Councilor Drew,
comment?
sorry.
Thank-
From 50680189394.
Yes, your worship. I think it's important that we have the in-person meetings so that the public who are not computer literate can participate. And there are a number of people that are not computer literate, that are not savvy of Zoom, and you know, I think it's important, especially when we're talking something as critical as a municipal plan, secondary municipal plan, or zoning bylaw, that we give everyone an opportunity to weigh in and provide their input.
I was just thinking they could write a letter, like even by hand, if technology is an issue.
Telephones.
They still have that option, Councillor Harrison. It's not just for in-person representation. They always can write letters and things. So it's just about giving options. Just your worship, just for a second, Mr. Miller keeps raising his hand, but Mr. Miller, we have to wait until the question period, which will probably be the next 2 or 3 minutes before you can provide input. But you will be given a chance to speak at that point in time. Sorry, your worship.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. I think I'm just going to call the question, and then we will look to see the logistics of it when we get to the 26th of August. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mr. Spear, the motion is passed, and Mr. Spear and Mr. Knopper, I'm sure you'll figure this out for us. All right, that's, I think that's the end of that part of the meeting. We will now move forward, and we will be at Mr. Knopper.
Mayor Naish, we're at question or new business. Do you want to go to there if there's any other new business? I have nothing listed, but
I don't think there's any new business that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So now we can move to question period.
all right. I'll open the floor up to Zoom first. I'll ask Mr. Vic Miller. You have your opportunity to speak to council. Go ahead.
Hey, I just want to let you know I'm a summertime visitor and I own a house on Water Street. And I think everything you guys are doing on the COVID-19 thing are really the good things to do. You know, when you're doing a one-way street on Water Street and you're limiting access on the wharf. I could say that because I live in Florida, and of course I can't come back to my house in St. Andrews, but anything you can do to limit the spread of COVID-19 is got to be the right decision. I mean, I know there are business situations that you need to know. You need to, you know, be able to support people that work in town. But this goes above and beyond the actual working for a living. I mean, really, this is something we see like once every 100, 200 years, and you guys are doing it right. I live in Florida, and believe me, I don't go anywhere. I don't go to the grocery stores. I don't associate with people. And we have the same situation here that's kind of like your whale watching. We have dolphin watching, and people come down here to Gulfport, Florida, where I live, and they get on shoulder to shoulder on the dolphin tours, and there's 35, 40 people on a tour, and they go out and then they come back, and then they go back to Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and they spread the virus. And you guys are doing it right. And even though it kills me that I can't go back to my house on Water Street, I think you guys are doing it right. And anything you can do to keep the spread of, the virus from going on is the right thing to do. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And it's unfortunate that it affects everybody. And we look forward to when this all calms down, having you back on Water Street. Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will go to the next line here. I will go to Miss Lindy Townsend. Lindy, you have the floor to council.
Oh, hi. I'd like to echo your sentiments, Vic. Just so you know, I entered New Brunswick and I was really impressed by the border and the questions they asked. And there's stringent self-isolation, which I'm going to adhere strictly to protect, all of my family who I came home to visit after my quarantine's over. So yes, I think that New Brunswick is amazing, and St. Andrews especially. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Also, I'd like to echo the sentiments of, I don't know who said it, but Mr. Knopper, your minutes are excellent. I just wanted to hearken back to the Recreation and Community Services RCS 200-602. That council moves to accept proposed link trail route for the town of St. Andrews under conditions that agreements can be made with the Algonquin, Kingsway Gardens, Cemetery Board, and additional private landowners as necessary. I asked specifically at that open meeting about the Coastal Link Trail. Did they have the intention to use private land or treaty land? I think I used the word confiscate or expropriate, and the answer was no. So has that changed?
No, not at all.
Okay, so agreements will be made with people who are okay with a trail going across their property.
Correct.
Okay, so I also, as you were aware, Penelope Breeze is part of our group, and she was stating that most of her property is residential, and we didn't get a chance to respond to the comments after we made our concerns known. But I think the example was made of Jesse Davies' property being labeled recreational property. But the difference between Penelope's land and Jesse Davies' designation on her land is way back when I was involved with the Nature Trust. That was at the same time Jesse gave that permission over to the town for recreational. So she voluntarily allowed that label, or at least community use of her property. I think Penelope would very much like if you could remove that last vestige, because it isn't voluntary on her part. The rest of her property is rightfully and correctly designated residential. So I would like that you consider that and amend that, because the example isn't the same. Water and sewage, like Mr. Gumashal, I had a little bit of a choppy Zoom. I heard the water and sewage, and I'm not sure if someone might add clarification. Since my family has owned this property, it's been on sewage and well, along with several other residences that are on, septic and well. So you know, for years and years and years, there's been 20 plus properties that I can count that are either on well and septic or septic and town water. So where are their fees or their rates considered in the water and sewage discussion? And the transportation master plan, that includes the coastal link, I'm supposing. So if that's the case, that would affect Penelope. Even though we're trying to self-isolate, we're sitting on our deck and there are tourists coming up to us and they're coming onto our property, which could put us in violation, and we have to interact with these people. We're trying to keep our distance so that, you know, everybody's safe. But if Penelope's land has the designation recreation, I understand it's Pottery Creek. Is that the reason why it's been designated recreation, because it's Pottery Creek? So, okay.
All right, Your Worship.
So those are my
Alexander
questions. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, Your Worship, I see Alexander Gopin signed on, so he may be able to answer that if Your Worship doesn't mind.
Yeah, I can definitely answer the last question. I mean, so the municipal plan map is not specific the way the zoning map is. If you look at the zoning map, that piece of property would be designated, where Pottery Creek is, it would be designated an environmentally significant area. And that's what it is. It's not a recreational area. It's a provincially significant wetland. And one thing I didn't mention at the last meeting, which I think is worth mentioning, is that the province does regulate those, but they regulate them in such a way where you can apply for permits and the province will allow certain activities. And the town may actually wish to go above and beyond what the province does. And that's why that land is designated as an environmental significant area. And in the municipal plan map, areas that are considered green space, which include both environmentally significant areas and open recreation space, like parks, are considered similar because the plan goals are similar for both.
Well, pardon me, but I think Penelope's concern is this. It's like saying this: oh, well, I have a significantly environmentally ecosystem. I think the whole world is a wonderful place and we should protect it. And that's why I worked with the Nature Trust to protect Navy Island and several other islands and different portions of New Brunswick. The problem is, working on the Nature Trust, we got, as Mayor Naish suggested and agreed with, that you would have these consensual agreements. And that's how the Nature Trust works. And I think it's sort of off-putting that that you're sort of saying Miss Breeze can't protect her own property. So isn't there a way that she can protect the property environmentally? I mean, the marsh, it constantly has visitors and so on and so forth. But again, that landowner voluntarily provided that through the Nature Trust. So I think just the last vestige, it would probably make the group quite happy if you could just make that look like it's not recreational at all. If you just say environmentally significant, or as I suggested before, listen, I know you guys have lost the will to live on the bylaws. I know I've been giving you guys a run for your money, but listen, it's the last tiny thing. And honestly, if our water and sewage, you guys can't figure that out. I understand that the town is old, and the last thing you want to do with all the costs of COVID and the storms, and, you know, the gates need to be fixed, and I see that the trail still needs to be fixed. The biggest one is we have to live with these documents. Penelope has to live with these documents. And I think that it's really, really hard to just kind of have privacy. And in the landscape of COVID-19, we didn't ask tourists to come up our driveway and visit us. And I understand that they want to go for a walk. I understand it looks inviting, but the other part is, you know, it is a pandemic. So even though there's, you know, less tourism, there are still people coming onto private property. So I would just like to reduce that for Penelope, and perhaps Alex or Xander, we can talk about this with Penelope or members of our subcommittee to find something that's suitable. I guess that would cause an amendment for the readings. I'm not sure, or if it could be.
Sorry to interrupt, but
That's okay.
We've got some other people, but I'm hearing you, and we're not finished with this yet, so we're ongoing. Okay.
Okay, and just lastly, I really agree with Mr. Harrison that the Zoom and so forth. Whoops, I'm getting a FaceTime from my daughter in LA. Ailey, just a second. I'm on town council. Sorry. Zoom is excellent. Mr. Knopper's minutes are excellent. We're able to follow things. I do agree with Mr. Spear. There's always the ability to write in. But this has been actually a very great process to be able to come on, voice our opinions. You guys can take them on. And I do want to give you compliments for taking on all of our concerns. And we've seen immense progress, and we've seen that the town council has increased their professionality, and that the minutes are straight, and that the reporting is better, and that people's opinions are able to be heard. So I'm sorry, but you had a huge meeting. I waited for the whole thing. I wrote down my points, and now I'll sign off. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Knopper.
I will go to Mr. Mallory. Mr. Bill Mallory, if you would like to speak to council, you do have the floor. I know they've been listening by video and audio. Seeing none, through you, your worship, I also have no comments on Facebook, so it's back to you, your worship.
Good. Well, thank you. Look, we'll move to councillors and deputy mayor's comments if anyone has anything at this late hour.
Your worship?
Yes.
It might not be the best time, but I just wanted to throw something at council just for consideration. As we know, an election might be coming up in May. And I've been talking to a few people in the community, and they're wondering, since we're doing a 5-year term, if the Union of Municipalities would consider doing a 3-year term for council. There's a lot of people that have raised their hand for 5 years. They're not sure if they can do 9, but 8 might not be as bad. So it also might be a mechanism that's used to get new people interested in council. It always used to be 3 years many years ago. And what it would do is it would align the election calendar back up to its original 4-year cycle by doing a 3-year term. And of course, we've seen some municipalities here in New Brunswick, most recently Campobello, that unfortunately has been handed over kind of to I guess you could say, an appointed individual to make decisions on behalf of the community. So I wonder if almost 3 years of the Union of Municipalities, and first of all, the town of St. Andrews supported that, if it wouldn't be a positive change to try to get more people interested in council and more people to continue to serve.
Deputy Mayor, I think that's an excellent suggestion because, you know, as I once said from my background in correctional services, I never met anybody who did 5 years without getting parole, but I'm gonna. But so I think your point is well taken, and I think it might just encourage people. So I'm open to doing that. I'd be very happy to call Wayne Sturgeon the president of the Union of Municipalities and just vet that with him and see if there have been any discussions like that, and then we can go from there. If you approve, I'll give him a call.
If that's council's desire on behalf, I'd love to see that and see where that could go.
Yep. Thank you. Great suggestion.
I guess are we allowed to do comments now, or?
Yes. Yes. Go ahead. Andrew.
Two things. One, I did see Mr. Knopper. There was a comment online from James Whitehead about the internet on the, what side would it be? Would it be the north side of Water Street? My sense of direction's kind of leaving me. But anyways, the internet, we can't get the fiber up there. And he did bring up a comment on that possibly council should look at in terms of with all the Zoom meetings and online education now, being stuck in the old wire system is not helping the businesses on that side. I know we've thought of that before, but I thought I'd throw that up to the floor because I saw it in there. And my only other comment, we had a bit of a discussion on the wharf tonight. I got to say, I'd take a different view. I think we should have that gate. We can always open the gate. But I was down there this weekend, and there were it's not as busy as a usual weekend, but there were a lot of people walking. The size of that pedway is about 4 feet across, 5 feet across. I don't think it's sufficient at all for the amount of people on foot walking that. We have all the crab pots on one side, so those are pushing cars towards the middle. I really think we should think long and hard before we give up that gate, and we should probably put a real gate on there, even if we do open it up for most of the year when it's not heavily used by people on foot, and in the mornings and that sort of stuff. I know it's jarring to some people who, it's a big change, but I think as a little town, we can do big changes and find ways to compromise so everyone's happy. And even people that aren't, that have lost their mobility, have mobility issues, there are other ways to get people around than cars. There are much smaller things with wheels on them that can do that I think we can all be happy with and have a lot of dignity and get to the places we always got to. Anyways, I just want to say I don't think we should throw that idea out. I think it was a really good idea. And again, I was there this weekend. I love to walk down there, but even without those crab pots, it's really a small thing. And if people are just doing kind of little rides just to go see what's at the end and turn around, I don't think it's safe. But those are my 2 cents on the wharf that we spoke about earlier.
Thank you, Councilor Harrison. Anyone else have a comment? I don't think so. And again, at this point in time,
through you, Your Worship, Councilor Gummichel had his hand raised.
Sorry, Councilor Gummichel.
Thank you. I prepared a number of comments, but I'll in the interest of time, I'll skip most of them. I will echo Councilor Harrison's applauding the idea of the gate. It is a big change, and I know it's very unpopular with a few, but it does seem part of a way forward. Also on the wharf, I'm happy to say that every night I see lots of people down there night fishing, and I would remind this council that night fishing was an issue that we struggled with not that long ago. It seemed that a few bad apples shouldn't spoil the bushel, and it seems that the issues around night fishing have solved themselves so far. So that's good news. I would think that if we applied the same sort of progressive thinking to skateboarding, scooters, and inline skating, we might find ourselves pleasantly surprised in a similar way to the way night fishing is flourishing down at the wharf. Also, I'd like to applaud staff and the planners, Xander Gopin and Alex Henderson, for the recent recommendations on the MP 20-01 from the municipal plan to remove many of the onerous provisions surrounding short-term rentals. They continue to exhibit leadership and vision. So thank you to those guys. And I'll skip my other comments. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councilor Gummichel. Okay, any other comments?
Through you, Your Worship, just give me 1 second. Mr. Miller, you've had your opportunity for questions. This is now council's question time. Thank you. Go ahead, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Knopper. I don't have any specific comments myself this evening. We're getting a little long in the tooth, but I do know that we need to go into a closed session. So, Mr. Knopper, can we, I'll call for a motion to go into closed session, please, and then Mr. Knopper can take us offline.
I so move.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Groot. And a seconder?
Councilor Michelle.
Okay, Councilor Gumashall, thank you. All in favor of going into closed session?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. We're going into closed session. Thank you, Mr. Knopper.
Thank you. Give me 1 second, Council.
Certainly.
Thank you, Vic. We need more Vics.
Session?
So move.
Thank you. Okay, we're out of closed session and now motion to adjourn.
I adjourn.
Hey,
Okay, Councilor Akaji, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Night, everybody.
Night.
Oh, where's
Yeah,
my-
good night.
There.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Night.
Good night, everyone.